Welcome to the class where tech takes the lead. Adam Todd here with just what you need. Teachers everywhere, let's elevate the game. With digital tools, we'll never be the same. In this podcast, we'll uncover the trends, from apps to gadgets on which we depend. Connect with your students in ways so fresh, innovative minds put to the test. In this podcast, we'll uncover the trends, from apps to gadgets on which we depend. Connect with your students in ways so fresh, innovative minds put to the test. Classroom dynamics where we all unite. Education future shining bright, with Adam Todd guiding us through. Teachers' paradise coming true.
Classroom Dynamics is supported by Logitech. As education continues to evolve, so does Logitech Education, your partner in content creation for the classroom. With Logitech's cutting-edge technology, students not only learn but also become content creators. Whether it's in person or online, Logitech's tools are designed to inspire educators and learners alike. Capture every educational moment in stunning detail and edit, produce, and share your creative journey with ease. Logitech Education, inspiring the next generation of creators. For more, visit logitech.com/education, transforming classrooms one innovation at a time. Welcome to Classroom Dynamics, the podcast where we unlock the future of education. Hi everybody, I'm your host Adam Todd, and in this special Autism Awareness episode, we're diving into the realities, challenges, and triumphs of raising and educating autistic students, especially those who are now autistic adults. We'll even touch upon how technology is playing a role as well. Joining us on the show today is Angela LaVeglia, an elementary school IEP teacher in New York City, along with her son Mikey, who is now an autistic adult. Angela is here to share the struggles she's faced, both as a mother and as an educator, the bumps in the road through Mikey's school years, as well as the barriers she's faced within the education system itself. But we'll also shine a light on solutions, exploring how technology is transforming learning for autistic students and helping them thrive now as adults. So stay with us as we navigate this important conversation. And it's all coming up next on Classroom Dynamics, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. AI can save teachers time, but what if it could do more? With Your Way, AI is built specifically for your school or district, aligning cutting-edge technology with your instructional goals, strategies, and vision. Empower teachers to personalize instruction, create engaging lessons, and implement innovative practices, all while saving time for what matters most. Why settle for one-size-fits-all AI? Customize and build your way safely and seamlessly. Discover AI that works your way at yourwaylearning.com. Angela LaVeglia is a dedicated IEP teacher in New York City who has faced countless hurdles navigating the education system, advocating for her own son, who is now an adult on the autism spectrum, as well as for her own students that she services every day who also need support. But what's working and what's not working? How is technology playing a role in breaking barriers for learners who are on that autism spectrum? And what are some of the struggles and even solutions, especially when supporting adults who are on the spectrum? We're going to touch upon all of those questions today. And to do just that, I'd like to welcome my very special guest and great friend, Angela LaVeglia, to Classroom Dynamics. Welcome to the show.
Hello, Adam. Great to see you. Great to talk to you. And super excited to do this podcast with you.
This is going to be a lot of fun, a lot to get to. So in a few minutes, we're going to actually meet and introduce your son, Mikey, and talk to him. But before we do that, you've been on a long and winding road with autism, which all started shortly after you had your son, Mikey. So let's go back to that point in time and talk about how that first few moments, those first few steps of that road began. Tell me about that.
So I want to say, when Michael was diagnosed, he was diagnosed as PDD-NOS, which is pervasive development disorder, and it's a big umbrella for autism. So now it used to be pervasive development disorder, then they would have like Asperger's, which is I hate to say it, but like a very high level, high IQ, savant kind of individual. So Michael was diagnosed with PDD-NOS, which is also not otherwise specified. So it's kind of a big umbrella term for autism. It was 26 years ago when we got the diagnosis. I knew when Michael was about 15 months old that something was definitely not developing appropriately. I have a daughter who's 30, so I did know the difference. He receptively wasn't understanding things that he should have. He wasn't talking. He was very frustrated, very angry, a lot of the time, a lot of crying, head banging, you name it. So there was a certain amount of relief that came that I had something to understand what was going on with my child. That was the first thing. This was back in 99, I want to say 98, 99. So it was when technology first started to kind of come to, some of those. It wasn't Google yet. I remember it was like Ask Jeeves. There was still a lot of paper and books that you would read. A lot of the material that I read was extremely shocking and very disheartening. So that was very scary. It was a really scary time for me because reading what I read about what it was when it was initially diagnosed and then the outcome of it was very bleak. It was like, okay, so your child has autism. It's kind of within the same realm of mental health, like having mental health issues, and that many need to be institutionalized, and that, there was a lot of negative connotation that came with it. Most individuals on the spectrum were institutionalized with other people that had mental health impairments and things like that, because they mimicked a lot of those same symptoms of like schizophrenia and all of these different things. So it was a really frightening time. There also wasn't a whole lot of research on what to do because, okay, once I went through a lot of the emotions, because believe me, the way I describe it is like I was living in a world where things were bright. I have my two beautiful children. I'm married. I'm living my life. I'm excited about things. Very young. I was only 25 when Michael was diagnosed. So I was in this space. And then when that diagnosis came through and when the information that I was getting came through, it was almost like I blinked my eyes and everything was a lot darker. And that's probably the best way that I can describe the emotional turmoil that came with that. Very, very scary time. And then on top of it, I'm his mother. Like, I have to help him. Like, what do I do to help him? So understanding what it was, getting a name for it, knowing what it was, finding out information that was, kind of not the best news in the world, and then reaching out for help and support through early intervention services through New York City. And again, I have to say, it's been highs and lows and ups and downs all the way through. In early intervention, Michael was given no diagnosis through early intervention. He was diagnosed through a neurologist that I took him to, but they wouldn't give him a diagnosis. They didn't want to really discuss autism per se. He was like a early intervention child with a disability. So obviously he wasn't talking. So they started speech and language therapy, which did help. And as time went on, and I've worked with these, just the most amazing professionals, special education teachers, speech therapists, and other individuals in this field that were like, well, we see these other things. Maybe we can do these other evaluations. And then from there, we went to occupational therapy, which really changed because it addressed so many of his sensory integration issues that he was having. He didn't like to keep on shoes and socks. So everything was a fight. He didn't like to get changed. He didn't like to be in, like, sunlight would hurt him. Too bright of lights would hurt him. And I didn't understand that. So the wonderful therapists and individuals in that field of early intervention really, really kind of shed a light on not only what they were going to do for him, but they loved hearing that I wanted to be a part of it. And like, what do I need to do at home? How do I help with him at home? So that's kind of where the beginnings of it was. We went through like a middle phase where, again, I am a research person. I like to get my information, read as much as I can. So I did a lot of digging in the library. I asked Jeeves. Remember Ask Jeeves, Adam?
Yeah, I do.
Remember that? Yeah. So I asked like a lot of questions, and, it led me to something called ABA, which is Applied Behavior Analysis. And it had the highest success rate of individuals on the spectrum. And when I began that process, I put him in CUSAC, which was a preschool, which is Queens Center for the Autistic Community. So that's where we had kind of begun our support specifically for spectrum individuals. He was getting full day of ABA, which is applied behavior analysis, which is like behavior therapy intermingled with speech therapy. I took him outside for occupational therapy because back then ABA and OT were like different schools of thought. So just that one component of it, I just felt wasn't enough. So I also took him for additional sensory integration therapy because of all the sensory issues that, I felt he needed it to be addressed more. And as soon as that was removed, when the ABA was put in, that was removed, all the sensory issues really, really escalated. You couldn't touch Michael. He had to make sure he saw you coming before you touched him. Very easily frustrated, easily agitated, still lacking in a lot of speech. So the OT, I'm a big proponent of OT. ABA really gave Michael the grounds to be ready to learn his letters, his sounds, his colors, his shapes, which are all pre-academic skills to be able to get ready to go to kindergarten.
You really took the whole, it takes a village to raise a kid to a whole new level, didn't you?
I did.
So you're in a real unique situation, right? Because you're both a mother of an individual on the autism spectrum, and you're also an IEP teacher. So you're dealing with special education all the time. So what have been some of the biggest challenges that you face navigating the education system along the way? Because we all know, let's be honest, it could be a huge challenge the way education kind of like lays out for us.
Yeah, totally. That's a really great question. I'm really glad you asked that. So I think the number one thing, and it kind of crosses between what I've dealt with as a mom and what I've been dealing with as an IEP teacher. I really do love my job. I love what I do. I love the position. I love the intervention, and I love being a part of the special education team at my school. I think what some of the biggest challenges is actually understanding what, I think teachers, parents in general, not understanding what access to the curriculum actually looks like for an individual that's on the spectrum. Access it's a very broad term, right? Like we think about access. How do we get in, right? How are we allowed in? How are we able to get in? So I understand, listen, I'm in the system now. It's 17 years. I was in the classroom. I was a para. I taught self-contained for years. I have a son that's on the spectrum. So I understand, like, it's overwhelming. There's a lot that we need to do as teachers. There's a lot that we need to do for our children. And then there's this tremendous amount of, I think, teachers and parents alike struggle with fear. So fear is that, well, they're supposed to be able to do this. We're supposed to be able to do. Well, if we give him these supports, if we do this, that's not what they're supposed to do. It's not what they're supposed to do in relation to what a typical first grader should be doing. It doesn't compare to students that are in the same age. And I think that that's a very scary thing, because when we look at differentiation, when we look at accommodations, when we look at classroom management, right, it's a huge nut to crack. When we look at an IEP, recognizing that, the IEP is put together with the narration of what this child needs to function in the classroom on a daily basis, what they struggle with, right? And also what their strengths are. So teaching into using that as like a gateway. What are their strengths? Is it a great memory? Is it a positive attitude? Like, what are the strengths that these individuals have? And how do we use that to give them access to what it is that they need to learn? Supposed to is a great idea. We could say that they're supposed to do X, Y, and Z by the time they leave first grade, right? Developmentally, if they're not there, it's basically like if you took a kindergarten student and tried to put them in a second grade classroom, you would understand, like, a 5-year-old is not going to be able to do what a 7 or 8-year-old can do. It doesn't match up. So how do we give them access? We know that they are developmentally behind. We know that they're academically behind, socially behind, all of those things. So the access for them to be within the school environment, in a community school, in any school, like to be able to do work and to feel like a productive part of the environment that they're in, there's differentiation, there's modification and accommodations. And a lot of people, parents included, are afraid that, oh my God, it's going to be a crutch. If you read the test to them, are they ever going to be able to read their own tests? But at the end of the day, we have to be able to understand that we need to meet the individual where they're at. and we need to level the field somehow. Like, how are we going to give them access to something and just expect them to just do it? So those scaffolds that come into place, the differentiation, all of the classroom management skills, especially from like, a preferential seating that needs to go in technology class as well as it is in, reading and writing. All of those things go across the board because this is what this child needs.
And you're doing that like at home too. So you're not only
God.
just doing it for the hours that you're in school, you're then going home and doing it again. So this now becomes a 24-hour a day, 365-day a year kind of uphill battle. And the way you have to navigate it is going to be that cliff has to be jagged.
Yep, it's very jagged. And what happens is that if we're not giving them access along the way, creating a goal is only as good as the scaffolds that we put in place to get there. But then we have to look at a goal. So if the goal is so far high above where the child is at, it's like the way I describe it to teachers and to parents is like, if you're going to have a ladder, right? Isn't it more like, if you think about it, a ladder that goes to the second story of the house, right? And can stop along the way, which is little mini goals along the way to get there, or if you have a goal that's so far over their head, you may as well try to build a ladder that's going to go to the moon, right? Because the goal is so high, you created such an unreachable goal. And there's no zone. So Vygotsky is one of my heroes. He's a child psychologist. I read and learned about him when I was in college, and he talked about something called the zone of proximal development. So we want to find a zone that we're working in for our students, for our children, under all circumstances, academically, socially. Where are they? Where would we like them to be, right? And then there's a zone that's in there because even this ladder might be too much. So where is that zone? So maybe we have to hit somewhere like here, right? To kind of give them a little push that they're actually using a little bit of rigor and brain power. And with that comes a lot of explicit modeling and explicit teaching, discussion, understanding that you'll have to repeat and model it again and again. But eventually those little steps are what leads to the higher goal. But if we're out of that zone, then it's impossible. Like, so if you're going to give a student multiplication that doesn't understand addition, you know what I'm saying? So what are we doing to actually address that in the moment? So that's kind of, like I said, the goals, the scaffolds, and all that stuff is only as good as the thought and the perspective. So I feel like that's a big challenge for many of us as parents and as teachers. It's like, well, but they're supposed to do it. I've had conversations with teachers and I'm like, well, that and a couple of bucks would get you on a bus. Like, yeah, we're supposed to do a lot of things. I was supposed to be 5'9". You know what I mean? I was supposed to be 100 pounds, 115 pounds. We're supposed to be able to do a lot of things, right? Could I get to my goal, to where I want to be? Absolutely. But I'm not just going to turn around and lose 20 pounds tomorrow. Like, it doesn't work that way. I have to set small goals that I can actually accomplish. So that is something that I think gets lost in translation, and rightfully so, because teachers are overwhelmed, parents are overwhelmed, programs are overwhelmed. So I think that really probably for me overall is that access and understanding of that access, and being able to quell parents and teachers' fears to say, we do know development, we have the testing, we understand that. But at the end of the day, this is where they're at right now. Let's not worry about where they're supposed to be. Let's worry about where they are, and let's keep working to get them to where they're supposed to be. It's not a crutch. It's not like they're just being lazy or that they just don't feel like doing it. We know when our kids are not giving or even trying, and that's where it's a different story. But however, most of the time you're going to get that pushback because it's just too hard. You know what I mean? Like, that makes it almost impossible. And then the defeat comes in. That's when you're going to see behaviors come in.
The frustration. Yeah, frustration's going to set in.
Yep, frustration. And then you'll see acting out behaviors in class, not paying attention, doing things that are socially inappropriate because they don't know what else to do with themselves. Like, you start feeling embarrassed, you feel silly, you feel like you're not smart, you can't do what your friends are doing. It becomes like a spiral of things. And then again, you're teaching things at such a pace, they haven't actually absorbed and learned it. Now you have a bunch of splintered skills that come into play because you're pushing them through to try to get them to that goal, So there's always these foundational skills and these middle skills that are missing. And that's, as an intervention teacher, I feel so blessed because I'm able, when I get my kids, I'm like, all right, let's see where the tests are. I don't know where you're supposed to be. I don't want to know. I want to know where you are right now. And that's where we go. And that's the same ideology that I use in my house with my son, with my daughter, with my whole life. I use that ideology because it's not realistic to think that. And if an individual is diagnosed with a disability, you need to figure out how to make this accessible, right? We want to make everything accessible for our individuals that have disabilities. Accessibility comes in a lot of different ways. So I think that understanding is something that I really hope that I can get out to the world, to teachers, to parents, to everybody who has these questions and that is wondering about this kind of stuff and how we can make it better.
Let's talk about some of the misconceptions about autism that you wish more educators and parents would actually get, understand it. You talk about autistic versus individuals who are on the autism spectrum. Why is that such an important piece to the puzzle here?
So, when you say the word autistic, and I will say that I haven't used it, and I still do, it comes out sometimes as well. But the term autistic kind of puts it in a perspective that this is what this person is, right? So while Michael is a person that is on the autism spectrum and he has autism, he's a lot more, right? So just like Adam, you're a technology teacher, you are a podcast person, like you do all these different things, but you're not just one of those things. So we don't want to ever pigeonhole and just say like, this is who he is as a person is autistic. We want to say that, he is on the autism spectrum. These individuals are on the autism spectrum, but they have so many other things that they are, that when you take the time to get to talk to people and know them and get to spend time with them, it's like, wow, this person is awesome. Like, what beautiful pictures they can draw. What a great hug, they can give. And, when I'm around Michael's friends, like they can sense I'm not feeling well. Like, and they don't come over and say, wow, you look terrible, or wow, you look so tired. They just come over and give you a hug. And it's like a connection that they're there to give so much. So autistic is like, we kind of just say this is what they are, but they're not just people that are autistic. There are so many other things across the board.
And so many abilities that they fall into, right? So it's
Yeah.
not just a clear cut anymore. It's not just you're autistic or you're not autistic. There is as you said, a whole spectrum. And we've heard that before, but I think now it's being more widely used and more embraced. So your son, Mikey, has grown into adulthood now. So how has your role now changed as a mother and an advocate? I mean, that has to have been a big evolution in terms of where you came from 20 some odd years ago to where you are now.
I tell you, Adam, your questions are so spot on because just from how I had to advocate for Michael when he was, 4 or 5 and in school to how I have to advocate for him now, there's a lot of common threads. So first of all, I think advocating for your individual that's on the spectrum or has any kind of disability is going to probably range across your entire life. So it will range and differ across all stages, across my entire life, across all of Michael's life. So it does shift and change. You have to be open to it. You have to be ready to kind of roll with some of the punches as things shift and change. We went into the adult world, and I will tell you, going from the DOE, and again, it wasn't easy to get services from Michael. However, when we entered the adult world, my husband and I were like, oh no, it is just a whole other beast to get the services. They're not children anymore. They're looked at as like they're adults. And it's like, okay, well, you could do this or you could do this. You could do this or you could do that. Like, these are the things we have. And no, I'm sorry, but like, that's not good enough. And there's more. So what do we need to do to get more or get what he needs, right? You know what I mean? People like, oh, what else do you want? You have all of this. Like, no, this is not what I want. Like, I want a trip to Hawaii. This is what Michael needs. You know what I mean? Like, I want a trip to Hawaii. I want to also be like, traveling and enjoying my life as well. But I'm not asking for things that I want because I'm trying to like gobble services. I'm asking for what Michael needs in order for him to stay in a space where he's consistently learning, he's consistently being taught, everything being modeled, and all of the supports that are in place need to stay there. So it's a big machine of programs and systems and protocols that are in place that they're not really doing everything they need to do. And it's not, listen, there's funding issues. There's there's not enough staff. These people who do work in social services do not get paid what they should get paid. By the time everything kind of comes down through the agency, they're getting pittance. It's a lot of different factors that come into place. But I think as a mom, what's really shifted for me is when Michael turned about 25, we entered some uncharted territory. So I was not prepared for that. We went till Michael was about 24 and it was like smooth sailing. He was doing this, he was doing that. COVID hit and oh my word, that was a whole other ball of wax to kind of deal with. And then also he turned 25. He was no longer considered in that, and he's still a young adult, but it's different. When you turn 25, 26, 27, 28, we were dealing with different issues, emotionally on a daily basis. And I said, I've never had a 25-year-old son with autism. I don't know how to do this. I don't know how to navigate this either. So again, it's back to the drawing board. And it's okay, these things are supposed to be person-centered. Why are we not person-centering this? Where is the support that I can get for Michael, for my family, for us to manage, the financials, to manage the trust fund, to manage all the legal aspects, to manage the day-to-day aspects. So it's a lot
to manage adulthood.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Straight out adulthood.
100%.
Because I have to imagine when he was a kid, people probably saw him and said, okay, there's something that is a little bit different that I'm not too sure of, but something's there. And they probably recognize it. Now, as an adult for Mikey, do you think that people treat him, because honestly, a lot of people will say, oh, I didn't know adults could have autism. Yeah, they can, because they were once kids who had autism. They were on that spectrum then. They're not going to all of a sudden not be on it just because they grew up. So do you think that people treat Mikey differently, even before knowing that he might be on the spectrum, or realize that he is an individual who's on that spectrum? Is there a fine line there that people don't get but then get, and when does that happen?
Yeah, it definitely requires some emotional intelligence, and unfortunately not everybody has that. I try to remember that it's not people necessarily being ill-intended, but I've taught Michael, and myself included, we're not looking to be victims here. We know what's going on, and if what happens is I notice sometimes somebody will get frustrated about him not understanding a direction right away, or him doing something that might not be socially appropriate, maybe walking in and not realizing that people are online and kind of walking to the certain things like that. And at first, the frustration and the anger, he looks like a typical guy. Who is this, large man? And he's just, moving his way through. And then, both of us have kind of come to this place to say, it's okay for us to say he's on the autism spectrum. So, you can just ask him nicely or ask him again, and it'll be fine, So I try to keep that in mind, but people do go from level 10, and sometimes people will really go right back down and be like, oh, okay, no problem. It's fine. And I'm like, no, it's not fine. He doesn't just get to go in the front of the line because he's on the spectrum. It's just, I don't think people are in that mode on a daily basis to kind of really recognize those things. Somebody like me, if I see that, I know. I know right away. Somebody else may not realize it right away. And I can, give a lot of leeway for stuff like that. I think what frustrates me is when they start talking to him oh, okay, buddy, I'm sorry, buddy, and I look at them and I'm in my head, I'm well, I said he's on the spectrum. He didn't just revert to being 5 years old. And on the days that I'm really tired and really cranky, I'm I said he was on the spectrum. I didn't say he was stupid, and that's, my head goes into that space and then I'm nope, backtrack. Because if you don't have somebody or have met somebody or know somebody that lives with this or understands this, they may not necessarily know. But there's definitely a difference. The people that know Michael and people that are my friends and people that are our family.
And I think teachers, right? Teachers sometimes, I think, pick up on that a lot quicker than the average person in society. And I think it's because of our interactions that we've had over the years with thousands, if not tens of thousands of kids. So it is interesting. So we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, more with Angela LaVeglia and some new stats that are sure to make you go, that's interesting. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Looking for the ultimate laptop protection? The Higher Ground Gear Shuttle 3.0 CS keeps your device safe, cool, and secure wherever you go. With its always-on design, your laptop stays protected at all times, while Clean Shell technology makes cleaning easy. The cooling deck prevents overheating, and the shock-absorbing corners stiff EVA shell and non-slip bottom ensure top-tier durability. Are you on the go a lot? Well, the carry handle and optional shoulder strap make it easy to grab and go. Plus, it's mil-spec certified, so you know it's built to last. Upgrade to the Higher Ground Gear Shuttle 3.0 CS today, because your tech deserves higher ground. Visit hggear.com to learn more. Teachers, podcasters, and classroom creators, take your content to the next level with Logitech Education. Whether you're recording a student-led podcast, creating engaging lesson videos, or producing professional quality classroom content, Logitech has the tools you need. With crystal clear cameras, studio quality microphones, perfect lighting solutions, and seamless editing gear, their full portfolio of content creation solutions empowers educators and inspires students. Bring professional-grade production into your classroom today. Visit logitech.com/education to learn more. Welcome back to Classroom Dynamics. Today we're talking about individuals, especially adults who are on the autism spectrum. Now, according to the latest results published from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention study, which just came out on April 15th, 2025, it reflects the data, though, from 2022. So we have to kind of keep that in mind. There's some interesting updated statistics regarding autism. It's also important to note that the study tracks trends of autism's prevalence across some communities, not all the communities in the United States, across some, but it is still eye-opening. I'm just going to read off some of the stats that stood out to me from the study, and we'll get your reaction to those particular stats. So among 8-year-old children, the overall prevalence was about 1 in 31. That was up from 1 in 36 in 2022. So we should note that part of the rise is because, and you kind of touched upon it before, there's some better diagnosis out there. So there's more understanding. The spectrum has grown a little bit and compartments have been filled in. So there could be a little bit more of an inflation because of that. Rates varied widely by location, with California reporting the highest numbers. So that was 1 in every 19 people. And Laredo, Texas came in with some of the lowest, coming in at 1 of every 103. So that's a big difference. 1 in every 19 in California to Texas, 1 in every 103. And when broken down by sex, autism was found to be nearly 3.5 times more common in boys than it is in girls. So from your experience, what do you make out of all this data?
It's interesting because I did see this morning on the news, they had released that data as well. And when Michael was diagnosed, it was 1 out of, I think it was 1 in every 833.
Wow.
So it has become much, I think you're right. I think diagnosis has been they've been more open to saying, like, we have a problem here. You know what I mean? It's not just about money. It's not just about funding. It's not just about that. Like, we're definitely seeing a lot of behaviors, and they are indicative of an autism spectrum disorder. The other thing is that, and again, I work on a really wonderful, progressive special education team. I love my team. I really do. And the 5 of us that work together to, look at our students, like, while my school psychologist can't diagnose autism, school psychologists now across New York City for some time have also been able to classify with the information and the data and assessments that we do, and classify that the student has autism. And with that, we have, let's say you have 10 parents, maybe 5 of them will take that information and then they will bring it to a neuropsychologist or a neurologist and get additional supports to support them. So I think that also contributes a lot to it, because when we're discussing a student and we do a psychoeducational, and many individuals on the spectrum, Michael included, like, their IQ is within the same range as other students in the same age bracket. But why are the numbers all over the place, right? Like, why does it look like that on the evaluations? Why does this happen this way? So we're able to actually give these assessments. One is called the GARS, and that kind of is an assessment that the school psychologist can give. It's a team decision to say this is what we're noticing. So I think with the awareness that's come through over the last 25 years with autism, that, the stigma on it is not quite as scary as it was when I got the diagnosis, because the information that I was reading, I'd be honest, I cried a lot because it was very scary. But now, we're looking to say, okay, well, this is what it is. Now, how can we support that? So when you have a very proactive family and mom like me, you're going to get all the information and get everything that you can possibly get for your child. It is a very overwhelming diagnosis, but once you kind of pass through some of the emotion, your love, and this individual has to live in the world, like, what am I going to do now? So that, I think, has created such an influx in the numbers as well. I don't think it was something that wasn't necessarily there and growing, but I think what you're seeing now, the data is, I've also, in my experience, it has been mostly boys. The girls that are on the spectrum are tremendously lower. So, Michael has a group of about 30 friends that are all on the autism spectrum that he spends lots of time with, and maybe 5 of them are girls. They're all young men that are on the spectrum. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely, I see it. Yep.
That is interesting. Let's switch gears now and talk about how that support starts to help. Let's use technology, right? So technology is starting to play a much bigger role in supporting people who live on the autism spectrum. Is technology playing a role in not only your life, but Mikey's life, in his learning, in his navigation through life? Are there any specific programs or tools like AI that you found especially helpful?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm going to let Michael give you a little bit when he speaks about what he does on a daily basis, but something that we've been kind of toying with the idea, just because as his family, we see the struggle that he has when he's in groups of people, even people, family and friends that know him, and they understand there is no judgment. He could be who he is, but he so wants to be a part of everything. He so wants to be able to integrate himself, and sometimes it doesn't come across in a way, and he knows that it doesn't come across, but he doesn't really know how to fix it or how to do that. So my daughter and
So
I,
he's really aware, but then but it's just taking those next steps where he
yeah,
just can't get to, and then the progression disappears then.
it disappears.
Yeah.
And it's like he doesn't have the verbal ability is hard for him to kind of produce all the words to kind of say something or to explain what he's thinking or how he can interject his knowledge into it. So my daughter and I were talking about using AI. So we went into ChatGPT, and what we did was we put in like a little prompt about, like, okay, I'm on the autism spectrum. I'm going out with neurotypical individuals with my sister and my brother-in-law. My sister is 30, my brother-in-law is 40. It's going to be mostly people within that 30 and 40-year-old range. And we put in like certain questions. What are good conversation starters? What is a way that I know when somebody's not listening anymore? What are their facial reactions? What's their body language going to be? How do I build on a conversation? And I did not expect what came through. I was like, oh my God, like it literally was, first it was 7 pages long. So we do have to kind of streamline it a little bit, but what came through was like, it came through with little visuals on there as well. Michael was able to pick and choose certain things out of there that he knew in that situation he was going to be able to jump on board with, which was how is he going to build on somebody else's conversation? How does he start the conversation? How does he politely wrap it up? All of those things were in the AI script of what it was that he needed to know about. And it gave him, Michael's really good with body language and facial expression. So like if you're sitting there like this, he knows that might be the time that person is kind of holding back, right? Or if everybody's sitting in a circle and they're sitting back and they have their hands here or their hands are here, even though maybe his mind might say, but I thought it wasn't polite that you're not being open. But if the whole circle is sitting there like this, then Michael will do that as well. So like being able to use that technology to be able to bring with him so he feels comfortable and confident when he goes out into that social setting, because he can't always be with me and Mike, and he doesn't want to be always with me and Mike. He wants to be with his sister and people that are his peers, and He wants to feel like a part of something. So AI is going to give him and has been giving him some of those tools and some of those resources on what a typical conversation looks like. And the other part that we were thinking about with AI is like, you can use Chat GPT on your phone. So like in a moment, if you're in a situation and you're not really sure, he's not really sure what to say or how to interject, he could just type in a quick question and it'll give him a quick response. How do I tell this person that I don't understand? I'm on the spectrum. What's a nice way to say it? Because then he gets anxious and it doesn't translate well. So put it in really quick. I want to tell this person that I am on the spectrum and I need him to repeat what he said, what the directions were, because I got lost. So that kind of stuff, like being able to use that technology in those moments, right? Because we can't plan every moment. So how do we use that technology in those moments to help him? Because at the end of the day, autism is a social disorder. So it's the social cues that get lost in translation and get confusing to Michael. So, sarcasm, all of those things, fear, they don't really make sense to Michael. So that kind of stuff is going to be super helpful and has been helpful already for him. And Michael has a bunch of other tools that he uses on a daily basis with technology, but that's something that we've only just started using. And I'll tell you, Adam, I was kind of concerned about AI. Yes, I
But
know.
you're seeing some of its benefits for your own, right? What you can do, because it was 7 pages long, if you retype in, just ask it to rewrite it and condense it down to a simplistic form. You'll take that 7-page and maybe make it just 1, and it'll be a little bit easier or bite-sized for him to take with him.
Yeah, so we are definitely going to do that. We talked a little bit about that, and he was like, "Mom, it's just kind of a lot of stuff. Like, how am I going to remember all of that?" And I said, "You know what? You're right, because I can't remember all of that. Like, I don't expect you to go in there memorizing the script either. But things are
Rewrite and condense are two of the best words for ChatGPT sometimes.
And that is exactly what we're going to do. But again, like just seeing that has created so much hope for me, and to know that Michael has an opportunity or a tool to help him when he needs it, when I'm not there to kind of talk about what's going on, or for me to say, Michael, do you notice that person is not looking at you anymore? Like, time to wrap it up, and he'll do that. But like, I'm not always going to be there for that. You're not going to live forever either. So I want him to have whatever tools that he could, use in his everyday life to make him feel confident and feel good and feel like if he doesn't know what to do, that there's help.
That's great. We're going to take another quick break, and when we come back, Angela's son Mikey joins us, so don't go anywhere. We'll be right back right after this. Teachers, are you looking for resources that spark creativity and inspire learning? Look no further than Highly Motivated on Teachers Pay Teachers. From comprehensive lesson plans and interactive lab books to engaging informational test prep passages, Highly Motivated has everything you need to keep your students motivated and excited to learn. Whether it's a quick activity or a full unit, these resources are designed to save you time and help students succeed. Highly Motivated, motivating teaching resources that engage and inspire. Search Highly Motivated on Teachers Pay Teachers today. Welcome back to the special Autism Awareness episode of Classroom Dynamics. We've been speaking with Angela LaVeglia, an IEP teacher and mother whose son Mikey is an adult individual on the autism spectrum. But now we're excited to hear from Mikey himself. Now, I know Mikey, great guy. Can't wait to talk to you. Thank you for joining us on Classroom Dynamics.
Thank you, Adam.
So, Mikey, how old are you now?
I am 27 years old. I will be turning 28 next month on May 26, 2025.
Happy birthday. Happy early birthday for you for next month.
Anytime, Adam.
I love it. I love him. He's great. He's such a great person.
Yes.
As an adult with autism, what are some of the biggest challenges that you still feel that you face in your daily life?
Social situations are hard because I have a lot to share, and sometimes I don't know exactly what to say and when to say it, especially when it's a group of people. Advocating for myself with words that reflect my emotions. I feel all the emotions, but it's hard to find the words to explain it. But when I don't explain it, I feel frustrated because the emotions build up inside me. Answering questions because I need time to process what is asked and how to respond.
It's important, isn't it?
It is, Adam.
So you've used some technology and it's played a role in your life now. Your mom was just talking about it, whether you're working or your daily routine routines. How has that technology helped you out?
Technology plays a big role for me in my life. In school, I learned how to use Google Slides, Google Docs, and Google Sheets. I learned how to research projects, presentations, and organize all the information to explain to others what I have learned from the past to the present. Some other really useful tools are on my phone and computer, like Google Maps for travel training and time management. It helped me know when to leave and how much time to get somewhere, so I can be on time depending on where I need to go, such as train, bus, walking, car, Uber, etc. Apps are great, such as Train Time app for the LIRR, Uber, and my MTA app for the Accessorides to book throughout the community, such as New York City and Nassau County and Westchester. Technology is part of my daily routines and my life. Another thing I am using now is ChatGPT. I am still learning, but I put in a prompt about a social situation. I describe what challenges I have and what I need to look for with people I am with in the group. I put in things like the age group, where the outing is, and what things like that. It gives me a social script with conversations, knowing how to talk, and when to listen, understanding people's facial expressions and body language. It breaks things down into steps and visuals, which I like. My mom is still helping me, and we are working on how to ask the questions so it doesn't give me 7 pages of things to process because it's a lot. I am really excited to continue using it to help me in social situations because those are challenging for me.
Do you like using the technology?
Of course I do, Adam.
What's your favorite one?
Google Maps.
Google Maps. That's good because you need to travel. You need to get around.
Yes, Adam, that is correct.
So what do you wish more people understood about individuals who are on the autism spectrum? I asked your mom this question earlier, but what do you wish more people would understand?
I wish that people knew I am a regular person and I have thoughts and feelings. I wish everyone would come together and respect each other the way we are with no judgment. People on the autism spectrum have gifts too. Being on the autism spectrum is just one part of me. I am an artist, such as drawings, a musician who is a guitarist, and a photographer who likes to take pictures in my personal free time. I love my family very much. I have a group of amazing friends, and we love to hang out and do the same things other young adults do and have fun. I love to work. I can learn things and do things like data entry, Excel, with patience and a little extra time. I can be an active part of a work team and family team. I have life dreams of living independently, having a dog and a cat, traveling with my family like you guys, and having a solo trip like me. People need to understand but not feel sorry for me. I want the same things: love, respect, loyalty, fun, and joy. We all want to be who we are and accepted that way.
Well, listen, Mikey, you are awesome.
Thank you, Adam.
Keep being you. Great job today. As we wrap up this important conversation, one thing is clear: autism isn't a one-size-fits-all experience. From the challenges in education to the role of technology and the journey into adulthood, every story is unique. A huge thank you to Angela and Mikey for sharing their experiences and insights today. Let's keep the conversation going, keep learning, and keep advocating. Before we go, Angela, tell everyone where they can go to find out more about autism.
I would actually start with your community. Like, I would go within your community, number one. Number two, I would also go, in terms of getting supports, go to the Office of People with Developmental Disabilities, which is OPWDD. It is a bit wordy, but you can really learn a lot about the services that are available for, and it's not just adults, like it starts with childhood. Where do you go for these kinds of evaluations? Where do you go to get a diagnosis once your school board has diagnosed, what they've classified that you have elevations and are on the spectrum or somewhere on that spectrum? So I always gear people to go to that. It's a lot to read, but take some time to read through everything on their website. There is a front door meeting. It's called the front door because everybody has to go through that meeting in order to then get access to all of the services and all of the care management that's available for people with disabilities. Also, too, like Adam, if there is anybody that, needs support along the way, I've helped many parents along the way, kind of navigate their way through it. I would also say just take the time to read, ask questions. Don't be afraid. Don't be ashamed. Don't be embarrassed. I think Michael said, like, no judgment, and you will find people on the other side that are there that want to help, that work in this industry, just like, our teachers. We want to help our students and we don't know how. So to reach out to all of your community agencies, reach out to your school board, because sometimes in school we're limited, we can do certain things, but your school teams can also give you additional resources right in your community. I know our school board has our social worker, our psychologist, myself. We can give so many different resources and web links to look at. But I think that would probably be the best ways to start, is to know what's available, because this is not a journey that you can do alone. It is a journey that you need a village. And even, families there, and it's wonderful, but they don't always understand. So you need to have people on the other side that this is what they do to kind of help you through. So that's really where I'd go to OPWDD, and I would go to your school district. I would also look into like community social groups. They have them all over the place. Social skills groups. There's a great social skills group at Adelphi University in Long Island that Michael went to for several years, made some amazing friends, worked with speech therapists there. They did social stories, all things like that. So those would probably be the first three that I would hit up and that I usually recommend, because OPWD kind of opens up the road to what services are available, how to get a direct diagnosis and what the services are and how to reach them, get care management in place, and then within your community, within your school, and then go and venture out a little bit and try a bunch of different things.
Very good. Thank you so much. For those of you who have been listening, thank you for tuning in today, and make sure that you share what you've learned or any takeaways or reflections that you've had, and tag us on X at Class Dynamics or on Instagram at Classroom Dynamics Podcast. You can also find out all of our links, including information about our sponsors, on our link tree at Classroom Dynamics. We always look forward to hearing your thoughts on our episodes and sharing the different ways in which you're using what you've learned. You can also help support Classroom Dynamics with as little as $3 a month at classroomdynamicspodcast.buzzsprout.com. Once again, I'd like to thank Angela LaVeglia and her son Mikey for joining us today on Classroom Dynamics. It has been such an incredible conversation, and I hope we've brought some awareness of the infinite number of levels that the autism spectrum can have, along with ways to navigate it. So thank you for the time. Thank you for the information. Great conversation today.
Thank you so much, Adam, for having us. It's been a pleasure.
Adam, thank you so much for having us. And it was a wonderful podcast, our first podcast for 2025 this year. It's been a pleasure. I was wondering if we could do another Classroom Dynamics throughout 2025 of this year. We could do another podcast. We could have a different topic.
I like that. What a great tease to a part 2 of this conversation. Great idea.
Thank you so much,
I love
Adam.
it. Thanks, Adam.
And that brings us to the end of this episode of Classroom Dynamics, where knowledge and inspiration meets innovation. I hope you've enjoyed today's discussion and found it both insightful and uplifting. As always, my goal is to provide you with practical strategies, engaging stories, and powerful insights that can fuel your motivation as an educator. I believe when knowledge and inspiration do come together, incredible things can happen in your classroom. And for all of you who think it's too late to strengthen your craft, I challenge you to make it your mission to do so. You've worked hard to get to where you are today, and it's never too late to infuse new life into your work. So why not make today that day to do so? I'm Adam Todd, and you've been listening to Classroom Dynamics, a teacher podcast. You can follow Classroom Dynamics on X at Class Dynamics and on Instagram at Classroom Dynamics Podcast. If you haven't already, go to Apple Podcasts and subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. We'll be back soon with more captivating conversations, inspiring stories, and strategies that you can implement into your everyday routines. Until then, keep igniting that spark in your classroom and never stop believing in the incredible impact that you have as an educator. You're more powerful and inspirational than you think. Did you miss our episode, Understanding the Reading Brain in a Digital World, a conversation with Dr. Marianne Wolf? Well, if so, join me as I sit down with Dr. Marianne Wolf, renowned cognitive neuroscientist and literacy advocate, to unlock the secrets of the reading brain in a digital world. From the impact of screens on literacy to groundbreaking insights on dyslexia, this conversation is packed with revelations every educator, parent, and reading enthusiast needs to hear. Catch up now and discover how technology and the science of reading is shaping the future of how we understand teaching and reading.
That led me to study the reading brain. And the reading brain, whether it was in people who have what was called alexia or aphasia, and then dyslexia, I needed to know what it takes to learn to read, what it takes to help children with different impediments in that reading brain, and what can I do about it as a researcher and a teacher, ultimately, of other teachers.